I just walked over to him and knocked his water bottle over because he knocked 3 beer bottles out of my hand, and I thought that I was clever, and then he thought I was another girl, and
I used to not wear my glasses at the gym.
Okay.
And
So
I
she was
have
blurry?
terrible vision, so I didn't realize who she was because it was so many months after that, and so I engaged in conversation, assuming she was like somebody else, and it just got awkward. And then a few more months went by, so now we're like probably in January at that point, and I saw her running at the treadmill at the gym. When I walked in, I'm like, all right, this is it, 3 times a charm. I'm gonna make this work. And I went up there, started running alongside her, told her right off the bat, I know who you are this time. And she had mentioned she had a birthday coming up, and I said, well, what are your plans? And she said, don't have any plans. Did you want to go out? And I said, well, what are you doing this weekend? And then now she's sitting on a couch next to me in our home 10 years later.
Awesome.
So
it's like your perfect love story, obviously.
Right. Yeah. So tell me about the moment you first found out that you were pregnant with your child. How did that come about? And how did you present it to your family?
I was getting ready for work, took a pregnancy test. Mike was playing PlayStation, and I walked in here and I told him he needed to stop playing PlayStation. He said he couldn't stop because he was playing live, and I said it was an emergency, and he said, "You just tell me what it is if it's an emergency," and then I said I'm pregnant.
Very romantic story.
Our stories got better and better.
Yeah, very. Yep.
Did you stop playing at that moment?
I believe so. Even if I didn't, I'm going to say yes.
Yeah, I don't even remember after that. Like we hugged, we took a picture, and then I went to work. Right?
Yeah, well, Nicole had a miscarriage a few months before that, so I think there was a little bit of reluctancy in the celebration aspect of it because of that. So the emotions were a little up and down, but no, I mean, it was an awesome news, awesome moment.
Yeah.
And now we have a beautiful 15-month-old son.
Awesome. And the pregnancy obviously went well, and
yes.
And then you had Michael.
Mm-hmm.
And can you tell me a little bit about what led up to the cancer, finding out about cancer? How did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, like, I complained a couple times during my pregnancy. So I was diagnosed on June 6th of 2018 at 28, 5 weeks after giving birth to Michael. And I was told that, like, the maximum time that cancer was in there was about, like, 6 to 8 months. So pretty much my entire pregnancy. And I had complained, like, a couple times about things that were just abnormal, and everyone chalked it up to just being pregnancy related. And I was persistent after delivery and actually quite annoying. I went to the doctors once a week for 5 weeks straight. And like the 5th time I was told that I was paranoid, I was a new mom, I should go home and relax, there's nothing wrong with me. I was still annoying, weaseled my way into another doctor's office, and within 3 days we were diagnosed with, at this point, stage 2, triple negative breast cancer, which is non-related to pregnancy, but actually pregnancy-related breast cancer is very common.
Oh.
Yeah. So definitely not something that you should always just let somebody pass the buck on.
So, can you tell me a little bit about that moment that you found out? Were you in the doctor's office together?
Yeah, we were. It was me, Mike, and baby Michael. We were sitting in the doctor's office. I think we had like a 3 o'clock appointment with a breast surgeon that we were referred to. We had a 3 o'clock appointment, and then 4 o'clock came, and then 5 o'clock came, 6 o'clock came, and her nurse practitioner kept saying, well, she's in surgery, she's gonna come, like, and at this point we had said, well, should we reschedule and come back another day? And the nurse practitioner goes, no, I think you should stay, and let me go get you some donuts. So from then on, we called her Amy Donuts. And we knew that it was cancer at that moment, that they didn't want us to leave.
So you had to wait for
Yeah, it was.
knowing to hear the words.
Yeah.
It was very gradual, and I think even before that appointment that we were handed the official diagnosis, there was another appointment before that where we met this breast cancer surgeon. It wasn't official, the biopsy results didn't come in, but just the fact that you were sitting there with a breast cancer surgeon was clearly not a good sign.
Right.
She sat down with us for well over an hour explaining things. In our minds we're thinking she wouldn't take this much time and be this elaborate if this wasn't a big possibility. So we kind of knew in that moment,
Right.
but we had to wait, and the waiting is what kills you. So like you're waiting, you know something's up. We had to go through the weekends, just kind of go through the normal motions of life like nothing was happening. You had that element of like denial, like no, it's going to be fine. This doesn't happen, that won't happen to us. And then the next appointment that Nicole just described was at the cancer clinic in Bayshore. So when we pulled up and saw that,
You didn't know
we
until
knew,
you pulled up.
we were told to meet with the breast cancer surgeon to go over the official biopsy results, but I think just pulling up in the parking lot and seeing where you were in that moment was confirmation that the results were going to come back positive. But again, you still don't know, and you're still kind of hoping for the best in that moment. So yeah, there was a very gradual build of emotions and frustration and all kinds of things going on.
Yeah, I can imagine that was just the anxiety leading up to there. Do you remember the moment you heard the word?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was awful. I was holding the baby.
I just remember we waited there for so long, and the surgeon was caught up in surgery, so we had to wait. The whole Amy Donuts thing that she was talking about was playing out, and we were waiting there for like hours. We had Mike with us. He was passed out in the stroller.
And of course, as soon as she came in, he woke up.
So yeah, as soon as she came in, he woke up just to make things a little bit more hectic and dramatic. And we were just out of patience at that point. And Nicole asked, like, "Is it cancer?" And with a very stern look, the surgeon said yes. And I know for me, it was just it's kind of like that cliche moment in the movie where things freeze, time stops, everything just and it was that surreal moment of like what happens now? Where do we go from here? So, I mean that's the way I remember it. I don't know how it played out for you.
So prior to that appointment, she had gone over every type of cancer, the less aggressive ones, the aggressive ones, cancer, non-cancerous things. So when we were hit with, it's cancer, my follow-up question was, is it the aggressive one? And she said yes. So we had hit every negative point of the diagnosis.
I remember even saying to myself, like, well, we got to catch a break somewhere in here.
Right.
Because so far it's just been like slamming one wall after the next. So yeah, I do remember like just kind of like reassuring myself like, well, this isn't as bad as it sounds. I mean,
obviously what you said was striking about like, when you heard the word.
Yeah.
Did it feel the same like as you asked each question and you got a bad answer?
Yeah, it
like,
got
was
worse.
it like every time? Did you feel the same type of feeling?
It got worse. She tried to start the conversation with, by the way, who is amazing, Dr. Fanette Northwell. She is phenomenal, saved my life. She started the conversation with, you remember last appointment how I said about, and she tried to like roll with how she was going to present the situation, and I said, is it cancer? She said, yes. I said, is it aggressive? Yes. Did we catch it early? It's stage 2. There's only 4 stages. So I just felt like every time,
But that was the break. I remember it was early enough where this is treatable and curable. And I do remember her like specifying that, and she was very elaborate in her responses, very direct, very down to earth, very scientific in everything she was explaining. But she said if this was a few months down the road, we'd be having a very different conversation. And like that, I remember my stomach turning just hearing that part of it. But there was reassurance, I think, in that moment that it was caught early enough where treatable and curable. So I think if there was anything to cling on to in that moment, that was the bit of news. So.
Yep.
So your son saved your life.
He did.
Yeah. And to think, I've had, going back to work when, kind of some of the smoke cleared for me, I know a lot of people were asking, and I found myself telling this story. And almost every time, the assumption was, well, this is a pregnancy-related cancer. And the answer, like Nicole said, is no. It's non-hormonal. It had nothing to do with the pregnancy. She found it nursing the baby. She found it because of the baby, but the cancer and the pregnancy were totally coincidental, which is pretty crazy to think about. The timing of the way things work out.
It was the best and worst time of my life in the same time span.
I think you have this new baby,
Yeah.
and it's this wonderful, emotional, incredible moment, and obviously, and you have a little extra admiration for him because he saved your life,
Sure.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. But you don't want to set the bar too high for the kid
Right.
either. It's like, hey, welcome to the world. You're a superhero. So yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the emotion of like the happiness of having this new child and also having this terrifying news?
Yeah, it was terrible. I definitely got stripped of new motherhood. It was really hard. Every time I looked at him, I cried for, I think, probably a couple months. It was hard to even just look at the baby without crying. Obviously, out of love. Just because I was scared that I wasn't going to make it and he was going to grow up without me. It was just hard. And then, I had surgery fairly quickly within 4 weeks of being diagnosed. It was like 3.5 weeks. So at that point, the baby was barely 8 weeks old, right? 8 weeks, 9 weeks old. And then I couldn't hold him for 2 months straight. So then, I had 5 weeks of just trying to figure out what was wrong with me, trying to take care of a newborn. My husband was back at work. Then I got ready for surgery. Well, I got diagnosed, then got ready for surgery, and then I watched other people take care of my child. Like, being unable to help, unable to hold him, feed him, change him. It was very hard. Very, very hard. So.
Can you tell me a little bit about family and friends, and did they come around?
Yeah.
Were they helpful? Like,
Everyone was great. We had a lot of help. But again, with that help, I was there in like a dark cloud watching other people live, and I felt like I wasn't living, and watching other people hug my baby and I couldn't hug him. It was a lot to cope with in the beginning.
Was there any reassurance or like, is there any plus to just seeing the outpouring of people that wanted to help? Like, did that
Yeah.
make you feel?
Yeah, I mean,
First it was
just to get back on something you had asked earlier, and then I'll tie it into this. I mean, for me, I know, like, trying to experience the new role as a father while simultaneously trying to experience this very stressful and almost awkward role of being a caretaker for my wife, who is younger than me, and trying to juggle the two and trying to figure out who I am in each one of these brand new roles without ever having done them before, was beyond stressful, for lack of a better word here. But yeah, the pouring in of help from friends and family, and I hate to say you expect maybe friends and family to step up, because maybe you do. You feel like obviously there's a connection there, but also from strangers, people you've never met, from different parts of the country. We had someone down in Florida that bought us those like the Broadway tickets.
Yeah,
I forget where it is. Indiana.
Aaron.
Yeah, never met us before. Emails Nicole. He had winded a story, I think, because Nicole's precinct had reached out to different precincts throughout the country and offered to buy us tickets to a Broadway show, and did. And it's just, again, it's, you start to see, not that you start, but you really see the good in people that sometimes we are that is easily kind of forgotten or you don't see. But yeah, that was, I guess, a positive experience in all this. And of course, yeah, friends and family stepping up was amazing. We couldn't have done it without them.
How was your role as a husband? Like you could, I got a little bit of that, but like your role as a husband felt like it was thrown off and.
Yeah, I found myself kind of questioning who I was, who I should be in that moment, kind of trying to change roles or even almost like personalities, showing emotion for certain things, hiding emotion for certain things, showing the right emotion, wondering if I'm even doing that part right. So that part was, and I guess still is tough. And Nicole said it too. Like she feels like she was robbed of that joy of motherhood, and even as a father, like a new-time father, like I didn't get to really establish that because I was thrown into this other role so rapidly, and making big-time decisions with doctors and surgeries, and trying to figure, should we take more time to think about this? Do we act on this now? If by taking more time, does it become a bigger risk? So you're so stressed out with all that stuff, and then you have this little infant at home. You've never raised a kid before. You don't know if you're doing that right, and that juggle became tough. Became really, really tough.
And so from the beginning, did you do surgery right away? Did you do chemo? What was the?
I did surgery right away, and then 4 weeks from surgery, I started aggressive chemotherapy, which was 16 rounds. So that lasted from the beginning of August to the last week in December, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And how you doing now? What's going on now?
I don't think they call it remission until you hit 5 years.
Okay.
Although from the date of surgery, technically I was cancer free. But the aggressiveness of the cancer, with my type of cancer that's so aggressive, you had to have chemotherapy. So I lost all my hair. It's growing back now. And
that was one of the biggest components of stress too, is learning all this on the fly. We got a crash course in cancer, specifically her type of triple negative cancer, what it was, how it works, how to treat it properly. Talking about the remission, I think with triple negative, we found out that I think it's like the 5 or 6 year mark. If you can get cancer free to that 5 or 6 year mark, they tell you basically you've hit the point of being cured. The likelihood of it coming back after that point is almost non-existent. But
the likelihood of it coming back,
it is the most likely cancer to have a relapse within the first 5 or 6 years. So and that's just one of, I feel like, thousands of things we were learning and try to figure out and wrap our heads around, while everything else was kind of going on.
Learning facts like there's a 20% chance it's going to come back in 5 years, but it's 80% chance that it's not. But still, those odds they're not reassuring. Like, they're not reassuring, but they are reassuring, because
right.
You always seem to find the negative in things. So now, since ending treatment, it's hard when something happens and you're trying to tell yourself that, oh, well, that's just a cold. But is it just a cold, or did it now come back in my lungs, or my bones hurt? Oh, is that from months of chemotherapy, or is it growing in my bones now? Things like that. And from chemotherapy, I've had quite a few issues. I have, I'm tired all the time now. Physically, I'm just drained, and my body hurts a lot. I've developed osteopenia, which
What is that?
I guess like a step before osteoporosis in your bones. I've developed Hashimoto's disease, which is a thyroid disease, and this is all from chemotherapy. So, and I'm only 7 months out now. So, and I'm only 29. So, it feels like a snowball effect of every time I go to a doctor now, it's just diagnosed with something else and something else.
So, what would you, if you were to jump back to that moment when you heard it and you had to give yourself advice?
Yeah.
How would you prepare yourself? What would you tell yourself in that moment?
I don't think there is any preparing yourself. Maybe Nicole disagrees, but like, there's nothing anyone, even if it was me returning from the future and saying, look, you're in store for X, Y, and Z. There's nothing that can prepare you for what you were in for.
Even being through it already, if the cancer comes back, say in a year, which I really hope it does not, I don't think that I'm prepared for that still. Even already been through it, even if it's, again, treatable. I don't think that mentally that you're prepared for that ever.
Okay. All right. So you were only like the doctor said 3 months away from a different type of diagnosis, right? So
Weeks, I would say.
weeks. So it's really important
Yeah.
that you get checked the moment,
Mm-hmm.
at every possibility
Yeah,
that
if
you can.
any advice I could give is just to be as annoying as possible. It's your health, it's your health care. If you don't like the answer, pursue it, because if I would have listened to that same doctor, I wouldn't be here right now. The survival rate without treatment for triple negative is months of,
Well, I mean,
the end.
I think what it comes down to, like where we're at now, if Nicole wasn't proactive as she was, she might not be sitting here right now.
Yeah.
So being annoying, as she's putting it, being proactive, asking questions, not accepting something that, even a doctor is telling you that you're not comfortable with. I think so many people are reluctant. Pete, you and I talked a little bit about this before the shoot, that there's like that element of denial, not only from a patient, but from doctors too. Like, well, it can't be this, it can't be that. And if you're not comfortable with that, get a second opinion.
Yeah.
And even if you're not comfortable with that, like a third, you don't have to be extreme and start seeing 20, 25 doctors, but like, get different information, because you'd be surprised. Doctors, specialists, as brilliant as they are, you go to different ones that excel in these areas and you'll hear different things. And, when you hear that new bit of information, in Nicole's case, that saved her life, yeah, you go back and you're like, holy crap, what if? That's a big what if I didn't get that second opinion. What if I wasn't annoying, as she put it? What if I wasn't as proactive as I was? And the answer could be, well, this would be a much different outcome. So, yeah, again, just being aggressive, being annoying, and
I'm sure I still drive everyone nuts, but anytime, I'm sure Mike's tired of me saying that things hurt, or things, or this bothers me today, and this doesn't hurt today, and this, but every time it does, I say it out loud, because what if in 2 weeks, I forget, and, someone's like, well, didn't you feel like that a couple weeks ago? And at that point, you should really not let things go. If something's bothering you for more than, they say 2 weeks, something's bothering you for 2 weeks, then you should really get that checked.
And every case is different. That's something else we learned about this too. Every
Yeah.
cancer is different. Every individual is different in the way their body reacts to the cancer. So, yeah, I remember the doctor telling Nicole. I remember the first doctor saying, like, Nicole, you're a new mom. Your body went through a lot of changes. You just had a baby. Like, don't worry about it. And if you feel that that's not what you want to hear, that's not the information that's going to be beneficial, then yeah, again, go see someone else, see what they have to say.
I thank God every day I didn't listen to that person.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you guys, Nicole first,
Mm-hmm.
and then Mike, can you look directly at the camera and like give like a quick like beg people to be proactive and
Okay.
say something, and don't feel stressed. Like we don't
I'll,
have to
I'll
do
step
that.
out of the frame. Let you.
Like a little quick synopsis, and then like just like ask them to be proactive about their health and get breast
All
cancer
right.
screenings.
Can I get a second to
You
think
can
about what I'm going to say?
Absolutely, absolutely.
It's funny, Pete, when you were asking, like,